Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right on into it. All right, let's pull up this screen here. All right, Jaden Rashada wants out of his national letter of intent. Looks like they weren't able to come up with the money that was apparently promised, so he wants out, and it's gotten worse. You know, this is going to get real brutal. Also, the Vols won, and they were very short-handed. They were down 2 key players, but they still managed to pull out a victory. We're going to go over that as well. But let's start out with this Jaden Rashada deal. This is something I've been kind of keeping up with, and it's getting real messy down there in Florida. And as you can see, it's all over the news that Rashada has asked for his release. And this is big time news. This is on Fox News, CBS, AB. Everybody's covering this because we've never really had this, I don't think. Now, Texas A&M, I think, had some problems where they weren't paying some guys, and a bunch of them left. But I never got into the details of that like I have this thing, because this blew up before it ever got started. Now, for some reason, somebody there at the Gator Collective wound up cutting some sort of a deal. It appears from all the reports that it's like $13 million, which is shocking for the number 7 quarterback in the country. Not the number 1, but the number 7. Now, this young man's actually supposed to be really good. He's like a high 4-star. Some have him as high as a low 5-star. But Florida, you know, they went to the bank on this one. Now, my understanding was Miami was offering him a good chunk of money, and I guess Florida decided to counter that and go above. Now, the problem is whoever they had cut the deal with to come up with the money, because it was more money than the Gator Collective could afford to pay, they supposedly had some big, deep pocket guys through what's known as Gator Guard. Okay, and the CEO of the Gator Collective, Eddie Rojas, obviously must have been working somehow with this Gator Guard and these big donors. And it would appear that somebody didn't come up with the money. And maybe they were supposed to. There was a lawyer involved, a contract. There had to be a contract because they sent Jaden Rashada a termination letter. So you're not going to send a termination letter unless there's an agreement, right? So obviously something was agreed to. They tried to come back with another deal that was lesser, but obviously Rashada was like, look, we've already cut a deal. You know, I'm going to show up and do my part, but you need to do yours. And that didn't happen. So obviously it's blown up at this point. It's probably going to end up in litigation. It almost certainly will. And this will be something everybody will be watching very closely, because it's probably never gone to court, not something along these lines. So this is going to be really interesting to see how this goes. And the Florida Gators right now are reeling. This is going to put them about number 17 as far as recruiting, but that's not the big problem. Their big issue is now they don't have a big-time quarterback there to not only help them recruit, but for the future of their team. Now, they did bring in a guy named Graham Mertz from Wisconsin. Now, you know, he was kind of a big dog in high school, but he's not played that well at Wisconsin. He's just played okay. And okay doesn't get it done in the SEC, so that's a deep concern. You know, I guess at this point, they're either relying on Graham Mertz or Jack Miller, which was the guy that played in the bowl game, and they scored 3 points, so that's a concern. And then they got another guy that's a redshirt freshman. So, you know, it's a real mess down there, and that's all there is to it. And whoever got this deal put together and didn't have the money squared away, you know, you really blew it.
You big dummy.
That's right. You are a big dummy. There's no telling. When you got 3 people involved, or 4, you know, think about it. You've got Rashada, you've got the collective, you've got the Gator Guard, then you've got an individual donor. I mean, that's 4 people. You have a deal that is that complicated, it can go poof in 2 seconds if one person decides he doesn't want to do it. So, yeah, they got a real mess. And look, I know some of the Florida fans, they think I'm over here roasting marshmallows on this dumpster fire that is the Florida Gators. And look, I'm not saying that I wouldn't roast marshmallows. But here's what I can tell you about Florida. For the last 15 years, they've had absolutely no trouble dunking on us every chance they got. As a matter of fact, every time they beat us, they pretty much did this. That's right. So I don't feel sorry for them, because they've enjoyed beating us many, many, many times over the last decade and a half. We finally got them this year, and hopefully we can go down to the swamp and get them again this coming year. But I can tell you what, they'll be there and they'll be ready. That crowd base will be psychotic when we go down there. They're going to want to win so bad because, look, we've been crowing. And everybody's been crowing on Florida. They got beat by Vanderbilt, for gosh sakes. Vanderbilt beat them. So things are not going well down there. They're 6-7 last year. They were 6-7 the year before. And Billy Napier needs to start winning because Florida is not going to suffer mediocrity. They just won't. So, now granted, regardless of what happens, Billy Napier is taken care of for the rest of his life. He signed a contract worth, $40 million? So money he'll never, want for anything. But, he wants to win. He's a very competitive dude, and he's used to winning at Louisiana Tech, I believe is where he was, and he won like crazy. I think he won the Sun Belt every time. So, there's a lot on the line here for Florida, definitely. And if they start getting on this cycle of bringing in new coach, I can go ahead and tell you that's a bad road to go down. We have been down that road, let me assure you, and it is a nasty, terrible road to go down. I'm so glad we got Heupel now. Hopefully we never have to go down that again for a long, long time. But I also want to talk about the basketball game, which was last night, and that was Mississippi State. And the Vols were very short-handed, but we had a couple of guys really show up and play great, and I'll show you the stats. And we wound up winning 70-59, but it was a lot closer than that. And Phillips, our 5-star, played great. He scored 18 points, and he really showed up after really struggling against Kentucky. And then also Ziegler played fantastic. Now, he started out rough, and he was turning the ball over, but, man, did he bring it on. He scored – that might be a season-high, 24 points. He filled it up. And look here, he was 6 for 6 on the 2-pointers and 4 for 10 from 3, and he made some buttes out there. Towards the end, he made a couple of shots. It looked like this out there.
Over the second rafter, off the floor, nothing but net.
Yeah, by the end of the game, he was calling it off the scoreboard and off the roof and everything else. So the Vols really needed that. The last thing you want to do is lose 2 in a row. We lost that home game against Kentucky, and Vols don't lose home games. It's been a year and a half since we've lost one at Thompson Bowling. So, that would be really rough starting out 4-0 and then lose 2 in a row. So they're 5-1 now in the SEC, and they're in good shape. But we need to get our 2 guys back. Vescovi and Key are both out. Vescovi's got a shoulder problem. They re-aggravated it in the Kentucky game. And then Key, who's one of our important scorers, was ill. So we were down 2 of our best ball handlers, and Ziegler had to play the entire game, all 40 minutes, and that's really rare in a Rick Barnes team. He does not like to play guys the entire game. That never happens. But he was the only point guard that we had. And, he could use James, but James is not a true point guard by any stretch. Now, he can handle the ball, but not like Ziegler can, not like Vescovi can. Last year we had 3 point guards. This year we really only got 2, and I don't like that. I'd much rather have 3, but it is what it is. So fortunately, it was a nice victory, and I feel so bad about the Florida Gators having these troubles. They don't have their quarterback lined up. All these recruits are going to wonder if they sign with Florida Gators. Are they going to get paid? Is it just is it some sort of bait and switch? What's Florida doing? So, all these 17-year-old 5-stars that they're going to be going after and 4-stars that are going to have 30 teams also after them. Let's see. I can go with the 30 teams that do pay the athletes, or I can go with this team over here that's known for wanting to renegotiate or not paying at all. And then, they even let them out of the National Letter of Intent. So I could see that being a huge weapon in recruiting that Florida needs to solve. They're probably just going to have to negotiate some sort of settlement with them at some point. And the longer this goes on, the more it stays in the news, and it's all over YouTube, news, everywhere. So they had best figure this thing out because it is a real mess. All right, folks, that's just an update on the Jaden Rashada Florida mess, and also the Vols winning last night, so that was a good victory for them. And it was an enjoyable game. Like I said, we were shorthanded, but you know what? They came through, and Rick Barnes' teams always play great defense, which they did. And it was an enjoyable game. It was stressful at times, especially in that first half when we had like 13 points with like 3 minutes to go. But they started playing really well after that, and Ziegler really led the way, and Phillips showed why he's a 5-star. You could really feel the momentum when Phillips got hot, and then Ziegler got hot. It was like, oh, man, it's a 2-headed monster. And if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Let's me know to continue to cover the Vols and the SEC and Florida and all that kind of good stuff. And if you haven't subscribed, it's right here on the left, and a lot of you watch my videos and you don't hit that button. Just boom. That's all you got to do, and it's free. And also, right over here, YouTube puts a video. It's my most recent one. Be sure to check that out. It's actually pretty funny. And I hope you did like the content. We'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.